Ba, 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 ba. Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the blah 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 blah. Let me try that again. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1562. Love Thy Enemy. So tonight we get to watch The Spy Who Loved Me. I love this one. There isn't really a James Bond movie I don't love. But first of all, we've got the weekly newsletter is on its way out right now. So if you are not on the list to receive our newsletter, please click on go to before dirtnapnewsletter.com. It's going across the bottom of the screen right now, and you'll be able to receive this week's copy. This week we look at Veterans Day. So with Veterans Day being tomorrow, today just being Friday, Red Shirt Day. Remember, everyone deployed. Somebody kept asking me, why do you always wear red shirts on Friday? It's Red Day. Remember, everyone deployed. And they're like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's what it is. So Veterans Day is tomorrow. And so this week's issue is about Veterans Day and a little bit of the history behind it. Because it's known as other days around the world. But anyway, tonight we're talking about The Spy Who Loved Me. Last night we got to watch The Man with the Golden Gun. I have to tell you, that's one of the funniest movies out there, especially with J.W. Pepper and his completely politically incorrect stuff that spouts out of his mouth. Mind you, it was made in 1974. Hang on, I read out the list. Where was it? 1974. So it was appropriate for the time when it came out. So remember, when you're looking at movies that were made, look at the time that they were made, the context that they were made in, the time, what was happening in that time period, and stop trying to, because a lot of people put today, what is valued today, onto movies that were made years ago. Oh, these don't fall within these parameters. They don't fall within those parameters because at the time they were made, those parameters didn't exist. So deal with it. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm just like, keep open minds, look at the time, put the movie in the context of the time it was filmed, what was happening at the time. So anyway, so this one we get to see Roger Moore's back again in his third movie. Yeah, third movie as James Bond. 4 more to go after this one as Roger Moore with James Bond. Now, Roger Moore is 6'1". The bad guy in this one, the villain that he gets to meet up, is 7'2". And that was Richard Kiel. We get to meet Richard Kiel in this movie. He comes in. He is this tall guy. He's got broad shoulders. He dwarfs Roger Moore because he is 13 inches taller than him. So when you see that is no camera trickery. There really is 13 inches height between. I had to go look up to see, well, how tall was Roger Moore and how tall was Richard Kiel? Oh, okay, there's a 13-inch gap there. So yes, there's no camera trickery on that one. Trust me, I learned about camera trickery way back in, I was in the Air Force at the time, and I was based at Shelley Bay, which is in Wellington. I was actually at department headquarters, and they wanted volunteers to go and work with the caterers in the catering department for the telethon. And we have every year they would have a 24-hour telethon that would go for 24 hours. And they would have different guests, celebrities coming from overseas and all of that. And they had one guy that came in, and he comes in, he walks into the room. And of course, we were just doing the general crew catering for the crew and all of that sort of stuff. The VIPs were taken care of elsewhere by private caterers. And I'll tell you, it was a blast. It was so much fun. I hardly got any sleep in that 24 hours. I did get to go home and then come back again, but I didn't get very much sleep during that time, but it was a blast. I have to tell you, working at a telephone, complete blast. And one of the guys from Dynasty walks in, the TV series Dynasty that was on at the time, and this would have been in the late 1980s. Hang on, when did I get posted to Wellington? Joined in 84, 86 was up to 86. I was in Christchurch. So it was either 87, 88, or 89. I don't think it was 90. It was somewhere in that 4-year time period. And we had an absolute blast that weekend. And there was a group of us, and we were from all different trades. And I think we had a couple of cooks that were Air Force cooks that were there, and they just directed us. We were playing stewards, we were playing sous chefs, we were servers, whatever we needed to be, we were. I mean, there was even a security guard there working with us. One of the security guards from the base was there. I'll tell you the story about Jack in a moment. And he was Greek, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But this guy from dinner who was on Dynasty at the time comes in, and one of our guys turns around and goes, "Wow, you are so much shorter than you are on TV." And then we learned about TV trickery when it comes to making him appear taller, how they use smaller doorways, they use the different camera angles to make him look taller. None of that is used with Richard Kiel up against James Bond. There really is a 13-inch difference in their height, so they didn't have to use any camera trickery to make him look bigger. He already was a big dude. But let me go quick and tell you about the story about Jack. So one of the people they had come for telethon was Sue Pollard, and Sue Pollard is a British actress and singer, and she is phenomenal. If you ever catch the TV series Heidi Ho, what's it called? Heidi Ho. It was about a holiday camp. It was a comedy thing that was on, and she always wanted to be a yellow jacket, and she was one of the maids, the bungalow maids that would clean out the bungalows and that sort of thing. And they worked at this holiday camp where during the summertime, all these families would come in for the summer and then they'd disappear and all that sort of thing. And she always wanted to be. So anyway, she was over doing the thing. She's absolutely hilarious. She has got the most gorgeous voice when it comes to singing. And so Jack was this security guard there, and he was probably in his late 50s, early 60s. He was from Greek, so he had a very heavy Greek accent. And we're sitting there, and he turns around and he mentioned that he wanted to meet Sue Pollard. And I said, well, why don't you just ask them if you can meet Sue Pollard? And he's like, no. Yeah, very, very shy. And so one of the organizers come over and says, oh, is there anything we can do for you? I says, yeah, Jack here wants to meet Sue Pollard. And Jack's like, elbow me, no, Helen, no. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get her. And she's like, be right back. And so the organizer goes out and comes back with Sue Pollard. And she goes, where's Jack? I was told Jack wants to meet me. And so I pointed Jack, and he's trying to hide behind me. And so he finally goes, and I said, look, get up there. And so I kind of kick him out there, and kick him out of his chair and put him up there. And so he got to meet Sue Pollard, and she was absolutely amazing with him. He was so shy. And then she turns around and she realized he had an accent, and she goes, where are you from? And he goes, oh, Greece. She said, oh, you're Greece? Uzo! And then she starts doing one of the Greek dances with him. And he just had an absolute blast. And then she's talking about, and he was just so red in the face, but he had an absolute blast. It had always been his dream to meet Sue Pollard. And he got to meet one of his idols that he'd had at the time. And it was just so rewarding to be able to make that happen for him in a way, just by speaking up. But yeah, she was a blast. So that was Jack and Sue Pollard's story. Anyway, back to The Spy Who Loved Me. So in this one, we've got Barbara Bach, who is in there, and she is the KGB agent XXX. And she has to work with 007 in order to find out why submarines are missing. So far, a British submarine has gone missing. A Russian submarine has gone missing. And these are nuclear submarines. Back in the 1977, this movie came out. So she has to team up with James Bond in order to find about these submarines. But in a little side story with this one, at the beginning of the movie, there's a really cool skiing chase on skis in the Alps in Austria. They're in Austria, and they're up in the Alps there, and they're skiing, and there's this huge skiing chase. And it turns out that XXX's boyfriend was one of the people that were chasing James Bond, and happened to be one of the people that James Bond killed during the chase. At the time she was up, all she wanted was revenge on her boyfriend. And of course, it was frowned upon for them to fraternize within the KGB anyway. So she was sort of like, okay. So she wanted to find out who had killed her boyfriend, and so she could go after them and get her revenge. Later on, it was revealed to her that it is James Bond that killed her boyfriend. It came out just through their general conversation. So she's like, we're going to get this mission done, and then I'm going to kill him. So there's that tension working with them under that as well. They have this huge super tanker. It is massive. And it's like, if you think of back to You Only Live Twice, where they were hijacking spaceships in space with the one that opened its mouth and closed over the spaceship. This tanker works the same way. The bow opens. They somehow disabled the submarine so it's dead in the water. The bow opens, comes over the submarine, and then the ship literally sails over the submarine and then closes the bow around it. And now the submarine is now trapped inside the super tanker. Now they had to figure out how were they going to do the interior of the super tanker. They needed like a huge soundstage for it. There was nothing big enough at the time. So in March 1976, the construction began on a new soundstage at Pinewood and was known as the 007 stage and cost $1.8 million. But I have to tell you, this soundstage has a whole story to itself as well. But the gist of the story is they end up going to Egypt, which is where they meet Jaws. And they're after this microfilm, and of course it's a race to get to it. And the two of them are trying to, and James Bond and Triple X are trying to outwit each other to get to the place first, to try to be the first to get the microchip, and so they can end this mission and get out of there. So she can get back to looking for out who killed her boyfriend. They also end up meeting Stromberg and going and visiting he wants to build an underwater world, basically. And so they go and meet him in Atlantis and get to see what he's doing down there and all of that sort of stuff, and find that he has the controls for the super tanker and all of that there. So and the car that James Bond is driving this time is a Lotus Esprit, and it turns into a submarine. They actually have it in the water. It's got its little wheels folded up and covered over, little fins come out the side. They can look straight, they can do a periscope to look straight up and all of that. They've got all the weapons available and all that sort of thing. It's pretty cool. So yeah, Lotus Esprit that converts into a submarine. The funniest one though is that the one where they drive up on the beach? I think that's the one when they're done with whatever they're doing under the water, they drive up on this beach and just drive away, convert back into a car and drive up on the beach, on a public beach. So with 007 stage, this was very interesting because when it was built, it was about just over 45,000 square feet. It was 41 foot high, so they had plenty of room in there. They also had a water tank that held like 1.2 million gallons or something of water. So they could do and do all of that. It was known as the largest silent stage the largest that was ever built at the time. And 27th of June 1984, towards the end of filming of Ridley Scott's Legend, so they hired it out to other people, other movies and stuff. The stage burnt to the ground. They rebuilt it. It opened in January of 1985 and was under the new, and I'm reading this quickly out of the Wikipedia page of it, under the name of Albert R. Broccoli 007 stage, in time to commence filming A View to a Kill. And A View to a Kill is the first movie in which we meet Timothy Dalton as James Bond. Another fire occurred on the 30th of July 2006, just after the production ended for Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. So they didn't have to worry about it. They were actually in the process of breaking down the set when the fire broke out. It took 8 fire engines an hour and a half to bring it all under control and all of that sort of thing. And then on July 31st, hang on, then they built another one. The new stage was redesigned and included a number of new features, including an increased workfloor space, enclosed stairwells to the gantry, vehicle ramps into the tank, aircraft hangar-style loading doors, increased electrical power and better installation. And it was just over, the stage was just over 59,000 square feet when they did that one. But they didn't say when they built that one. It doesn't say here when they built that one. Construction on the new stage began on 18th of September and completed in under 6 months. And then an explosion shot on the sound stage in 4th of June 2019 caused extensive damage to an external wall of the stage. So there's been a lot. I mean, there's just something about the 007 stage. It's been destroyed a couple of times, rebuilt, blown up, all sorts of things. So so they built the stage just so they could build the James Bond movies in there and create the sets that they needed to create without having to put temporary ones up and then break them down and that sort of thing, like they had to do for the volcano scenes for You Only Live Twice. They did not want to do that again, so they ended up just building their own soundstage that they could use instead of building a temporary one that had to be completely dismantled. So tonight we see film number 10 with The Spy Who Loved Me with Roger Moore as 007 in his third 007 movie. And we get to go to Egypt, and we go a ski chase down the Alps in Austria. Where else do we go? We go to Atlantis, which is underwater. It's Stromberg's little bubble thing. And we watch a Lotus Esprit become a submarine when it goes into the water. But I have to say, what do I like about this one? Jaws just scared the crap out of me when I first saw him. Then and then he comes back in Moonraker, which is tomorrow night's movie. Movie number 11 is Moonraker. That came out in 1979. And the reason he is in Moonraker is the fans loved his character so much they wanted to see more of him. And what's really sweet about Moonraker with Richard Kiel is you get to see a softer side of Jaws. Yes, he's got a mouthful of metal, but you get to see a softer side of him. And it's really quite special tomorrow night when you watch that one. So he scared the crap out of me when I first saw him on screen. I was like, yeah, I don't like him so much. But after I saw Moonraker, I was like, okay, I can deal with him. The phenomenal ski chase at the beginning, the submarine thing under the water with the Lotus is pretty cool. Bringing a female onto an all-male submarine was an interesting thing to watch, because at that time they didn't allow women on submarines at the time, and they had this Russian KGB agent who was actually a major who was on board the ship. And they tried to keep her identity as a female hidden as much as they could. There's just a couple little slip-ups that they made. What else is in this one? Egypt's pretty cool when they go through that, although they kind of destroy some of the bits that, and I know they recreated them and all of that sort of stuff, but still it was sort of like, that's history you destroyed. You know how many years that thing's been standing and now you just pulled it down. So things like that. So, but then it's a movie, there's fight scenes, stuff gets broken. Thank goodness they didn't actually do it in Egypt. They built a set for that one. So that was pretty cool. That was cool because then I knew they weren't breaking the real one, but it still gave that thought of, do you know how many years that has been standing and you're now just breaking it to pieces because you're having a fight? Couldn't you go somewhere else and fight? You have these sorts of things running through your head. But anyway, so we're going to go watch, The Spy Who Loves Me. So it's all about two people from opposing sides, the KGB and MI6, coming together on a joint task to find out what happened to their submarines, and basically having to save the world because Stromberg wants to create some nuclear war thing to destroy all the land and stuff so he can build his little empire underneath the water. It's basically what it boils down to. So anyway, if you have seen The Spy Who Loved Me, let me know in the comments below. What is your favorite scene in that? And we will catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. He konara.